Principal Bottoms was the person who made the decision. The school hired some company to help figure out why test scores had fallen so sharply, and the answer was that fudge dogs were at the root of it. Here, fudge dogs are going up, 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 and the test scores are going down, 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 down. Apparently, visits to the nurse office have skyrocketed ever since fudge dogs were introduced, and kids have been missing a ton of class time. I've never personally gotten sick from eating a fudge dog, but I'll admit that whenever I have more than one, I don't feel like I'm at my best. And a lot of kids have gotten into the habit of taking a nap right after lunch, especially on fudge dog Fridays. Even though everyone knows fudge dogs probably aren't good for you, it was still a shock when they got discontinued, and on Monday, students staged a walkout to protest the decision. Bring back fudge dogs! Bring back fudge dogs! Principal Bottoms tried to calm things down by introducing a new fun food to the menu, and Fudge Dog Fridays got replaced with Macaroni Mondays. The school even put posters up in the hallways to try and get kids excited. Who's ready for Macaroni Monday? Me! But serving a bunch of angry middle schoolers macaroni was just asking for trouble. Things got so out of control that Principal Bottoms had to meet up with the student council to see if they could come up with a solution together. Principal Bottoms said he'd allow fudge dogs back on the menu as long as kids only had one apiece. But the student council said that was too harsh and the limit should be 2 per person. So they split the difference and landed on 1.5 fudge dogs per student per day. And even though nobody was completely satisfied, it seemed like a good compromise. But if you're wondering what happens to all the extra fudge dog halves, Mrs. Podsner created a whole new food type for the second time in 6 months, and that's gotta be some kind of record. Fudge dog fingers are here. Friday, one of the reasons kids at my school don't take their education seriously enough is because we don't have a lot of good role models. The most famous person to come out of our school is Larry Mack, and he went to prison, and the second most famous person is Larry Mack Jr., and who dropped to take over the family business when his dad got put away. But I don't think Larry Mack Jr. has any regrets for not finishing his education, because from his ads he seems to be doing just fine. Don't burn your bucks on a lemon, Larry Mack Jr. His family looks like it's doing all right too. Larry Mack Jr. has a bunch of kids, and he uses them in his television ads. And people can get enough of his younger son, Larry Mack Jr. I actually feel a little bad for that kid, because with a name like that, his only choice in life is to take over the car dealership when his dad decides to hang it up. So anything he does between now and then doesn't really matter. I think it's kind of crazy that your parents come up with your name before you're even born, and then you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. It feels to me like you need to get to know a person before picking a name that fits them. In some cultures, they wait a year before they decide on your permanent name, but that's still probably not enough time, because if my parents named me when I turned 1, I would have ended up with a pretty terrible name. We shall call him Gregory Bartholomew Poopy Pants. Other cultures let kids come up with their own names once they're old enough, but I'm not sure that's such a great idea either. Because if you let kids my age name themselves, they'd probably just end up using their video game handles as their permanent names. Harmless or Potato, Nothing 196. Squiddy in Scooter, Moldy Tours, Nothing 1989. Some people legally change their names, but I don't see the point of going through all that hassle because I bet my family would just keep calling me my old name anyway. Would you like some more garlic bread, Greg? It told you it's Techno Lazarax. Sometimes I wonder if I'd be a completely different person if I was just named something a little cooler. New champion, Brock Boulderheaver. Maybe your name has nothing to do with the person you turn into. Because there's a girl at my school whose name is Angel, and that doesn't seem to have made any difference in her case. But in olden times, your last name was just whatever you did for a living, and even though that made things simple, it must have made it really hard if you wanted to switch jobs. What makes you think you can handle this type of work, Mr. Candlemaker? Heavy-duty construction. Nowadays, you can be whatever you want to be, and I got big plans for how I'm going to make a name for myself. Fifth annual fudge dog eating competition. Champion! 4 times champion! If I ever do get famous, I'm going to be real careful about how my name gets used. Because the last thing you want is to have your name on something that hurts your reputation. Greg Heffley Sewage Treatment Facility. Clap, clap, clap. If I was Larry Mac Jr., I wouldn't want my family name one of those worst performing middle schools in the state, because that definitely can't be good for their car dealerships. The crazy thing is, if Larry Mac Jr. would just return some of the money his dad took from our school, it could help us turn things around. But ever since his family moved out of town a long time ago, Larry Mac Jr. probably hasn't given a second thought to the middle school named after his father. Last summer, the state decided to build a new baseball stadium, and to pay for it, they had to take money away from the fire department and library and the schools, and people were protesting outside of the stadium over the budget cuts. Stadium, no! Stadium, no! Stadium, no! The worst thing is that since our school did so bad on the standardized tests, we got the most money taken away. So now I guess we're supposed to do more with less. Principal Bottoms has made all sorts of new rules to help the school save money, starting with capping the amount of materials each kid is allowed to use per week. It used to be that if you wanted to use the stapler or a couple of paper clips, you just took whatever you needed off the teacher's desk. But now each kid gets 19 staples and 6 paper clips a quarter, plus 4 glue sticks wipes. Geely. 19 staples. Paper clips, 6. Glue sticks wipes, 4. G. Heffley. 19 staples, 6 paper clips, 4 glue sticks wipes. A. Hendricks. 19 staples, 6 paper clips, 4 glue sticks wipes. If you need more than that, you've got to bring your own supplies from home. And Ricky Fish has been taking advantage of the situation because his mum works at the local office supply store and gets stuff at a discount. The students aren't the only ones who get less materials to work with. Each teacher only gets 1 dry erase marker per week, so they have to make it last. And sometimes I feel like my history teacher skims over important stuff just to save marker fluid. World history. Dinosaurs. To humans. To nowadays. Then something breaks in a classroom. They don't even bother to fix it anymore. Last week the hand on the pencil sharpener broke off in geometry, and everyone had to gnaw their pencils to a point so they could take the quiz. Lately, people have started handing Ruby Bird their pencils to ask her to sharpen them, and I'm still not exactly sure how that works. But classroom supplies are just the tip of the iceberg, because the school is taking all sorts of steps to make its pennies go further. Earlier this week, the school started cutting off the heat after lunch, and by the time 6th period rolls around, you'd better hope you remember to grab your coat out of your locker. The only class that's not freezing is science, and that's because we've been firing up the Bunsen burners to keep warm. But I'm a little nervous because we only have enough propane to last another week or two. The school's been scrimping on electricity too, to save money, and shut off the overhead lights in the C wing, and you can tell which kids have their lockers in that section of the school, because they're the ones who walk into homeroom with dilated pupils. The only kid who doesn't seem to mind that the lights are off in the C wing is Evelyn Trimble, but everybody says she might actually be a vampire. Another way the school decided to save money was by cancelling their contract with the exterminator. So now on top of everything else, we've got to deal with cockroaches that are so big you can hear them when they walk in the room. Step, step. At first, whenever a kid spotted a cockroach, they stepped on it, but the teachers hated that because it was cruel and it also left a mess. So the new rule is that if you see a bug on the floor, you have to put a cup over it. And in some classes, we've had half a dozen cups scooting around at once. Usually one of the janitors collect all the cups at the end of the day and set the bugs free outside. But I guess on Wednesday, the janitor in charge of collecting the cups was out sick, so the night cleaning crew got a nasty surprise. Scream! Ah! Roaches aren't the only insect that we've got issues with, though. Some honeybees got into one of the classrooms in the C wing, and eventually the school just decided to let them keep it. The insects are annoying, but if you ask me, the rodents are the real problem. Ever since the school cancelled the exterminator, mice have been getting into the lockers and going through our lunch bags. It's gotten so bad that the school had to make a rule that everyone who brings lunch to school has to keep it in the front office. But if you end up spending half the lunch period just trying to figure out which brown paper bag is yours, what's worse is that kids who have lunch in the earlier periods have started raiding our lunch bags and taking our snacks. Sometimes they'll swap something that they don't want from their bag, which is how I ended up with a pickle instead of chocolate chip cookie. I got tired of people stealing my lunch snack, so I decided to do something about it. This week I started bringing Manny's lunchbox to school, which has a lock on it. The Snurples. A couple of kids who have lunch right before us got curious about what was in my lunchbox and tried to bust it open. But I guess those metal boxes are built to withstand a real beating because they couldn't crack it open no matter how hard they tried. It didn't really matter anyway. My snack for that day was a bag of sour cream and onion potato chips. But by the time I opened it, the chips had turned to dust. I kind of wish the school would just cough up the money for an exterminator, because trying to take care of the problem themselves has created a pretty dangerous situation. The school set up mousetraps all over the building, so now you've got to be really careful about where you put your hands, especially in the library. Youch! I guess school's just trying to save money wherever they can, and the latest place they're cutting back on is assemblies. Our school used to go all out on assemblies. Last fall, we had 3 different authors come to school, plus the illustrator of Commando Crocodile. A few weeks after that, a zookeeper brought in a bunch of exotic animals, like penguins and an alligator that was 10 feet long. In February, we had an assembly where a scientist in a white lab coat and goggles did all sorts of cool experiments on stage, and even though it seemed a little dangerous, it was still pretty cool. Rad science! Swoosh! But I guess the school doesn't have money for that type of thing anymore, and now our assemblies aren't anything to get excited about. Last week we had an assembly called Living Presidents, where each president gave a speech about their time in office, but one actor did all the parts, and I'm pretty sure it was the same guy who played Clarence Cluster. And they probably should have let him have lunch in the cafeteria afterward, because if you ask me, it kind of broke the spell. 2 fudge dog fingers, please. On Tuesday, we had an assembly that caused a big stir for all the wrong reasons. Randy from Randy's Reptile Review accidentally let one of his snakes get loose, which caused a total panic in the gym. The good news is that the snake was spotted in the hallway the next day, but I don't think anyone's gonna tell Randy, because that thing is single-handedly taking care of our rodent problem. Thursday, this money situation at school is getting pretty serious. Now teachers are starting to leave. Apparently the whole teaching staff was supposed to get a raise this spring, but when Principal Bottoms told them it wasn't gonna happen, a few of them actually quit on the spot. That meant that all of a sudden I didn't have a history teacher, so the school put Leonard Burry in charge of teaching, since he's been held back twice, and this is his 3rd time taking the class. Industrial Revolution began in England. People moved to cities. Mr. Frum quit too, which means now Miss Lackey is the only social studies teacher in our grade. So that actually removed the wall between 2 classes, and now Miss Lackey can teach twice as many kids at once. Population growth. Europe. World. 1950, 2030. But even after some teachers left on their own, the school made more cuts to the staff. They switched Miss Macy from full-time to 3 days a week, and they let one of the school nurses go. So now we're just down to 1. The new rule is that you're only allowed to go to the nurse's office if it's for something urgent like a medical emergency, and each classroom has a sign next to the door to see if your situation qualifies. Stop, do you really need to see the nurse? Please stay in class if you have a runny nose, hangnail, paper cut, blister, pimple, hiccups. Personally, I think the new policy is reasonable, because I'm pretty sure that some kids were going to the nurse's office just to get out of class. Other kids were using the nurse as a free physiologist. I heard David Sneed used to visit the nurse's office to talk about his fear of underground supervolcanoes. Now every teacher has to take care of minor medical issues in the classroom, which is taking a lot of time away from doing their actual jobs. Yesterday, Miss Pritchard spent the whole period putting bandages on kids who got injured making paper airplanes when she stepped out of the room. But teachers aren't doctors, and I don't love the idea of someone who's not qualified giving me medical treatment. So when I got a splint in my butt from doing sit-ups on the gym floor, I decided I'd just wait until I got home to take care of it myself. Youch! The people who got hit the hardest by all these budget cuts were the janitorial staff, whose team went down from 10 to 3. And the worst part is that the janitors who lost their jobs got replaced by a machine that cleans a floor.